I'm Doc Shauna Springer, and I'm so pleased to support this 2021 Walk of Honor. And this talk or address is also sponsored by Veterans Voices of Contra Costa. It's a monthly live television show where you can call in, and it's the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. if anyone wants to join us or call in, ask a question, interact with the people that are on the show. We bring on a lot of veterans and family members, and we have really honest conversations about challenging things and about really great things that impact the veteran community. So please check us out there. But for this talk today in support of the Walk of Honor, I wanted to address some of the impacts of this year of trauma. This year has been one of the most traumatic years in our recent history. And when somebody who has served in an infantry role in the jungles of Vietnam says something to me like, I've served in combat, but I've never seen this kind of trauma where everybody is equally affected, and where the world just stops. Nothing like this has ever happened, in my lifetime. When somebody like that, a warfighter, says that to me, it's really interesting. And I certainly think there have been so many impacts on all of us, not just on the military and veteran community, but on all of us across society. And so, as a kind of interesting part of that, I think trauma is no longer an abstract concept for many people. I think we all get it at a cellular level about the impact of trauma and how it can just ricochet through our lives and impact many different domains, relationships with people we care about, businesses that we've toiled for years to build, and just the whole landscape of our normal lives has changed this year for many of us. And so, interestingly, some of the veterans in my community actually feel a bit less alien in society as they come back into a society where people now understand the impact of trauma a little bit more than perhaps they did before this year. Um, Whereas before, veterans would sometimes say to me, I just feel like I've had these different experiences that nobody else has had. Like I've had grief and loss at a level that nobody else has really experienced in my civilian friendships. But I've had my grief cut off when I've lost people that I love like family, whether in the war zone or to a training accident or to suicide. That cut off grief has been a disproportionate burden held by many of you in our veteran community. And now I think Americans across the country have been feeling the same kind of cutoff grief that perhaps was more familiar to you previously. And for some veterans and their families, this trauma has actually echoed past traumas. And so there have been some themes in how this trauma has taken shape that have made people at times feel a double impact. And so, for example, if you think about COVID-19 as being, the different kind of war that we were fighting as a society against this invisible threat that no one could see, yet we had to be hypervigilant at all times. And we had to change the way that we see people around us, not just as friends and neighbors and social contacts, but as potential virus carriers, right? And so shifting in that mindset to a more what I call chronic threat response mode, where everything in life is filtered through threat, can greatly exacerbate past trauma to be dropped into that mindset, for most of a year, if not more than a year for some people. And then I think, that cutoff grief that I was talking about has also been a real factor. People pass away. And so many of our loved ones and relatives, maybe just due to old age, maybe nothing to do with COVID, have passed away, but we haven't been able to attend them. And we haven't been able to be with them. And we've also seen deaths by other causes this year and haven't been able to be with our loved ones during their passage. And so all of these impacts can lead us to feel a sense of helplessness. I do think we've also learned some important lessons, though. I think one of the lessons we've learned is that it's often harder to do nothing at all than to do something really hard. So as humans and as people, especially those of us that are, in the warfighter community or military family members, we're people of action by and large. And so we're wired to respond to a threat by taking action to oppose the threat. And yet we were told to just bunker in and just hope that the sort of wave of the virus would pass over us. And so just sitting in our homes was really challenging and runs against the grain of our instinct to do something. And that was a unique challenge. And I think people really miss the point when they, I heard sometimes comments like, this generation had to go to war and all you have to do is stay home and watch Netflix. It really does miss the point of the psychological impact of having a threat in our lives and then not being able to take direct action to mitigate the threat. I think we also learned how connected we are as human beings and that we have incidental connections with each other in the course of a normal work day or a day, just out and about. We run into friends and neighbors, and we've lost that. Our social lives have become impoverished relative to what they were a year ago. And that's really had an impact on us. And then I think the jobs and roles that have given our lives purpose and meaning have sometimes been casualties of this war that we've been facing in terms of COVID-19 and this virus that's kind of crossed over the country and really impacted us on a personal level. But I want to share something hopeful because it's not all with anything in life. There's not just darkness. There is also light. And there are things that I think even now are moving in the direction that's going to change the quality of life for many people. And the first thing is what I was saying before about how we now have had a humbling realization that the world cannot be divided into two groups of people, those who have trauma and those who haven't. Or that trauma is a veterans issue or a first responder issue, that veterans or first responders have this unique challenge. Now we know this is a human issue. It's a human universal to have trauma and to walk through that valley. And because so many of us have now experienced that, I perceive that there's a will to really look at how we treat trauma and how we see it and how we see the stigma surrounding it. So there's been an explosion in, availability of therapies through telehealth. Actually, the VA and the vet center were on the front of that movement many years ago, before it became a necessity this year. When I was at the VA, we were doing telehealth sessions. And so that's expanded. And I've been talking with people in the vet center, and they're reaching people in diverse areas of California to offer them sessions that fit right into their lives. So that's something that's really been a good movement to make therapy much more available and able to fit right into our lives. Another really hopeful message, I think, is that many times when we suffer, the beautiful things in life, the things that are good, that are worth staying in the fight for, they're so much sweeter because of the suffering. So we've had a year of relative deprivation and suffering in terms of our social connections. And can you imagine the kinds of reunions we're all going to have as it becomes safe to gather and we get, vaccinated and get to that herd immunity, that we can come together in ways that will be safe and that we're going to have incredible reunions. I think this is going to be the best Thanksgiving many of us can remember, maybe in many years or in our whole lifetime, as we reunite in person and we hold and embrace and talk with and connect with the people that we love so much that we've really been missing for this really extended time of trauma. And then I also want to acknowledge that some people are really going to have some long-term negative impacts from this year. The loss of jobs is going to have, there's going to be some needs around that, getting back up and running or finding a next situation or position that will allow us to live into our purpose. And we really do have some amazing providers at the vet center, some at the VA that are good docs that are worth reaching out to. And so if you've never tried therapy, whatever era of service you've served, I had Vietnam veterans that had unaddressed trauma for 40 years when I started working at the VA. There were people that just never had the help that they needed. So I really would encourage people to take advantage of the good docs that are standing by to support. And just want to leave you with the realization that we have something really special here in Northern California. Our veteran community is very special and very connected to each other. And there are wonderful groups like the Vietnam Veterans of Diablo Valley, and all of the things that the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation is doing to improve our community. There are good warriors, good men and women, and people in the military and veteran community that are doing amazing things to support each other and our communities as a whole. So that's what I would leave you with for this 2021 Walk of Honor address. And I hope you're all safe and well, and I look forward to reuniting with you soon in person.